So this is the first past paper for Year 11 history, and it's got three typical questions you'd find on the first half of the paper. There's 5 questions on the paper. These three questions are all concentrated on the Middle Ages and the Renaissance. The first one is an inference question. What can you learn from sources A and B about? In this case, it's changes in the way people reacted to disease. You've got the leper in the Middle Ages. He carries a leper bell to warn people to keep away. And you have the order of the Lord Mayor of London during the plague of 1665, telling people to every householder to keep the street clean in front of his door, no animals to be kept in any part of the city, dogs to be killed by the dog killers. Then the second question is the usual explain the importance question, 9 marks as usual. Remember, you spend 1.5 minutes per mark, so question 1 is 6 minutes, question 2 around 13.5. The boxes below show 2 important factors which have affected medicine. Choose one, explain why it's important. The theory of the 4 humours, or the role of religion and care for the sick during the Middle Ages. The third question, again very typical, it's a certainly however type question. How much impact? You know it's a certainly however one because it says how much, or it could say how far, or to what extent, or how far do you agree, or something like that. That sort of approach has a certainly and a however. Certainly it had an impact. However, it didn't, obviously, on medicine is what you're looking for here. And you have 3 little bullet points to guide you here. The first thing I would be doing is putting a C or an H next to each of these, depending on which section I'm going to put it into. So, on to the question. So this candidate has approached the first question with a very, very strong structure. From sources A and B, I can learn that. So it's obviously focused on the question, and then they tell us what we can learn. This is the inference. There has been a change in the way people reacted to disease. You'll notice that there's 2 ticks there, because that's an inference. There's 2 ticks here as well. So there's been a change in which people have reacted to disease. Can she evidence that? Well, from source A, I can tell that the leper is warning people off as he's ringing a bell, as he already has the disease. You see the tick for that. Okay, and then we get the link to the other source. However, all right, and that's the important bit here. Source A shows me that the people had to try to prevent the disease before it gets to them, as they try to keep their street clear and kill animals. So we see there's a difference. On the first one, it's just leaving it up to people, just stay away from them. The second time, they actually try to do something about it. Really well evidenced. Then again, strong structure. However, I can also see a similarity between the 2 sources. So yet again, we have 2 ticks because there's another inference. All right, nicely focused on the question between the 2 sources and the way that people reacted to disease. So we say in both sources, they are trying to prevent anyone from catching the disease. Okay, so they're trying to stop other people from getting it. And we can see this. I can infer this from source A as the leper is warning off others with the bell, so they do not catch the disease. And that nice little connective there. Similarly, in source B, I can tell that they are trying to prevent people from catching the disease by cleaning and killing the animals. So 4 out of 4. The simple reason being is 1, 2 inferences. That's what you need, and it's backed up by both sources twice. That's a level 2 answer, 4 out of 4. So, if we move this up, we can see the second question then. And this is on this one, this candidate attempted the one about the role of religion, the importance of the role of religion in improving medicine. Again, another strong response. The role of religion in care for the sick during the Middle Ages had a very important effect on medicine. So we've got a judgment there, very important. The most important, you can see the double tick there for that, the most important impact was how the church was a central power at that time, therefore controlling how the sick were cared for. I think that their views and beliefs got in the way of the care of the sick. So, nicely structured here, because we have a firstly. So, firstly, hospitals were owned by the church at the time. So they've said the church is the most important reason. It's being backed up now. Double tick. Okay, hospitals were owned by the church at the time. No trained physicians, only nuns and monks to help the sick. They believed the only way they could help the sick was to pray for their souls. This meant that religion got in the way of the treatment of the sick. Now, a better way of got in the way of is to actually say hindered the treatment of the sick. And it goes on, The belief that God overruled all of the rational treatments that they could be used to care for the sick. All right, excellent point there. So they said that religion was the most important reason, and now it's being backed up really, really well. Again, down here, we have a very good, interesting point here. Similarly, all right, nice little link being made there. Religion also played a large role, okay, sticking to what they argued before, religion also played a large role in the care for the sick in the way that the church, we can see it again, let's make that a little bit bigger so that we can read it. Yeah, there we go. The church at this time thought that the King Charles II's touch could cure the king's evil. There we go, fine. Double tick for a little mention. That good knowledge there, used to support the point, and the point being that the church is still controlling things. This meant that people at this time were not admitted to hospital or to a physician as they thought the supernatural theory, and on we go with that, blah, blah, blah. Okay, similarly, the church, the central power, believed that Galen's theory of the four humours, balanced by the opposite theory of opposites, was the right and only theory, problematic for sick people. Again, that word hindered. I like that word problematic, though. That's a good one to use. It was not actually the right theory, could not help them, whereas the right treatment was come along by luck. The church liked Galen, that's true, and his theory, because he told them the human body was so beautiful, it must have been made by a higher being, which the church liked and envisaged as God. Overall, the church, being in control at this time, affected many aspects of medicine, making it the most important the reason why religion affected the care of the sick. All right, a lovely answer there. But as you can see, in this bit here, I've awarded it 8 out of 9, not full marks, because I've said they could mention how far the church had held back progress with its conservative theory of opposites. I also think there could be a little bit more in here about the church's role in hospitals, although it is mentioned. In fact, both those things are mentioned, but it could perhaps be made a little more explicit. But again, that is an A-star answer, very, very strong. Right, for the third bit, it's about how far the discoveries of the Renaissance had an impact on the knowledge of medicine at this time. Okay, so this bit here, in my opinion, isn't needed. It can just go straight in. The discoveries in the Renaissance had a large impact. There you go. It's an explicit judgment. Large impact on the knowledge of medicine at the time. However, there was a very small impact on medical treatment side of things. Overall, I think, and on we go. Now that is a complex judgment, which is going to push this answer up to being a higher level answer. Okay, and there we go. All right, by the physicians, there we are. We have, you can read it yourself, we have Vesalius and Harvey here, outweigh the fact that not many treatments were invented because they also encouraged others. That's the important thing here, encouraged others. We have a bit about Vesalius here, all right, and again, look for these double ticks, all right, therefore meaning his discoveries had a large impact. It keeps being linked back to the question, okay, large impact on the knowledge, and on it goes again. Another double tick here. This meant the previous theories were wrong, such as that of Galen. Vesalius proved this, all right, lovely. It's all talking here about why the discoveries were important for medicine and had an impact. And again, the focus is there all the time. Therefore, this had a largely progressive impact. It's focused on the question throughout. Similarly, and we get into Harvey this time, this had a big impact in medicine and on we go again with a very similar approach. The other discovery mentioned here is the use of technology. Again, backed up Harvey's theory. See the punctuation problem there. Apostrophe S for Harvey's. And again, discussed in very similar technique, nicely focused on the question again. Then we have the however section. That's all in the certainly section, arguing there was an impact. However, all these new discoveries could be undermined by the fact that the germ theory had not yet been discovered. This meant no one could actually know the cause of disease, therefore having a regressive effect on the impact that could be made on medicine at this time. Similarly, people did still believe in Galen, hindering, there's that word used this time, hindering how much impact the discoveries had on medicine. And then the judgment repeated at the end. Overall, the discoveries by Harvey and Vesalius outweigh the regressive impacts made. And on we go. Now, Pare could have been mentioned here, but it's not needed. This got full marks anyway. Pare is not actually on the syllabus anyway, but you could have brought Pare in as an example of a treatment that did actually make a difference. A strong answer because, of course, it's got certainly, however, and all the way through it, explicit judgments, complex judgments on how much of an impact it had. Look in the introduction. It had it's a complex judgment because it says it did have an impact, but in some ways it didn't because germ theory hadn't been discovered yet. A very strong response.